Hello and welcome to How to Start Up, a podcast for anyone starting a company. This is a collection of conversations with people who have all successfully started, run and even sold their own companies, sharing not only professional but personal experiences on what we should be doing now, next or never. Hosted by me, Juliet Fallowfield, founder of PR consultancy for startups Fallowfield and Mason. In this episode, we hear from Hannah Aykroyd, founder and managing director of the award-winning property advisory Aykroyd Co. Hannah has many years' experience advising high net worth private clients on prime London real estate transactions. And now 4 years into her own business, her clients range from private individuals to family offices, investors and developers, both domestic and internationally based. Hannah shares with us her thoughts on the freedoms starting a company can afford, especially when it comes to also starting a family, and highlights the fundamental importance of bringing on a team as soon as possible. Hi Hannah, thank you so much for joining How to Start Up today. It would be great if you could start by introducing yourself and your company.
Hi Jules, thank you very much for having me. My name is Hannah Aykroyd and I'm the founder of Aykroyd Co. We are a property advisory firm and I founded it in spring 2018.
What was it that spurred you on to start your own company?
I feel very lucky in terms of how the company was started. So the background is that I was a director for a leading property advisory firm called Van Han. Our MDs were poached. On the back of that, I was able to set up a property advisory firm with a running start. So we were transacting with clients, and that first month of trading, I had no downtime. I had no gardening leave, like many have to endure. And I was able to hit the ground running.
What gave you this idea for this company? Was it something that you had done for other companies and it was just something that you knew you wanted to do for yourself?
Background is I studied law.
Did you? I did not know that.
Yes, which is quite helpful now in my job. I speak to solicitors pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
So I studied law and then moved into property and originally started on the sales side. Quickly realised that I was working for the wrong person. I was getting frustrated by having to paper over the cracks and any issues with a particular property, and quickly realised that I wanted to be acting for the buyer and to really represent their interests. And that prompted a move across to the buying side about 8 years ago now, and I haven't looked back. So I've worked for 2 previous buying agencies. I then set up my own, and we are now ranked in the top 10 across the UK, and we're one of the few truly independent property advisory firms, and now also one of the largest buy teams that focus purely on prime central London.
That's incredible. So when you say property advisory, is this, and I don't want to disparage what you do, is it sort of personal shopping for property?
It's a great way of putting it. Yes. So we act on behalf of the buyer. So if, for instance, you were to, if you were looking for a house or an apartment in, say, Kensington, we would be representing you, and we would go out to the entire market and work on it for about 2 weeks, preview sort of 30, 40, 50 properties on your behalf, mainly off market, and we'd come back to you with a report of, say, 8 properties, and then we'd work through those on a call ahead of taking you out on a concise tour. And because we spend so long uncovering every property that is potentially available in the market, both on and off market, our clients feel really comfortable quite often with us negotiating on one of those properties in that first tour. So we're really here to save our clients time, because no one has any time these days.
Very true.
So time and money.
Given that you were doing a similar career before, but just for somebody else's business, and you were starting your own, what was the first thing you did when you set up your own business?
One of the first things I did was to hire a remote PA who is actually still with me nearly 4 years later, and she has been invaluable. She sort of knows my business inside out.
And presumably knows you inside out as well as a person.
Yeah. She certainly does, yes. So she helps support me with the business and also does a lot of personal PA work for me as well, and just has full access to everything and has saved me so much time and is just a great support. But just to have someone really at that early stage was just critical.
I know I need that, but I also know it's a huge, huge trust that I would put in somebody to give them basically keys to the castle. Well, I mean, it's keys to the cabin, let's say right now. How do you know that you found the right person to bring into your team, given that they are part-time and remote?
It's a really good question. She actually is a little bit more than remote, so she will come into the office usually for half a day a week. So she really has got to know the team very well. I'm a trusting person and quite finely attuned to reading people, and I just got a good sense from her. And a lot of it's gut instinct. And I also know when certain team members in the past haven't worked out, and I've been quick to make decisions there. But I think a lot of it is gut instinct.
You alluded to the fact that that was one of the first things. Were there other things that you did right at the beginning that you'd recommend new founders do too?
Well, sitting down my husband, who is the best business mentor I could possibly hope for, given he is an investor. So I really sat down with him and sort of just worked out my strategy, wrote down a business plan, and obviously went up on Companies House, did all the paperwork, and really that's where Rachel came in at the outset.
And was there an incredible piece of advice that you were given when you were starting out, and does that still hold true today?
Delegate. Delegating is key. So someone said to me, is your time worth it? Is this the best use of your time? If not, delegate. Work out what your personal hourly rate is. So what are you hoping to bill for that year? Break it down, obviously putting holidays into that as well. What is your time worth? And it's a really great way of making you quite clinical about how you spend your time.
How do you stay inspired with being self-employed, given it is a lot of hard work and you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and that your business has gone through the pandemic? How have you managed to keeping yourself invigorated about it?
Yes, I think a lot of it is about speaking with friends like yourself who've also been brave and set up their own businesses, just being able to sort of share ideas with each other, and such a huge support for me. And for me to stay inspired, I need to have balance in my life. And a big part of my release is playing tennis regularly. I play competitive tennis sort of 3, 4, 5 times a week. And actually, when the tennis club was shut during the pandemic, I genuinely found it really difficult that I wasn't playing tennis and not having that outlet. So another element as well is really just having a fantastic team. And nearly 4 years later now, I genuinely feel I have the best team that I've had to date. And that is so exciting.
Given that you have many years under your belt and you're very experienced in what you do you still feel the need to continually learn or upskill? Is that something you try and challenge yourself with?
That's huge. It really is. I think that is the critical point, actually. We are advisors, and obviously I'd come from the sales side. Most of my team has come from the sales side, and candidly on the buying side, we are expected to know so much more. We are expected to know, overview on sort of tax and financing and planning and sort of heritage, sort of listed buildings. And clearly we will always pull in the right team of trusted professionals to wrap around each client. And clearly we cannot give financial advice, but we are expected to know a certain amount and to help advise a client alongside a relevant professional. So for instance, yesterday we ended up having a working lunch with an independent valuation surveyor that we work very closely with. We also had our planning expert actually come in yesterday afternoon into the office as well. It is week in, week out. We are always learning, and importantly, as well as a team, we're all out on the ground. Any new nugget of information, I really encourage everyone to share that constantly. And I think that is where being part of a team is just so important. In whatever you do, just having someone to sort of bounce ideas around and share knowledge is key.
Do you have any advice on information sharing, given that we are remote first working in this new world that we find ourselves in?
Yes, well, I think, again, because we've been in property, we've been very lucky. We've been able to be back in the office quite early on, more so than most. So we've been in the office for 3 days a week for quite a while now. And it is really as easy as just copying each other into emails, or we've obviously got a WhatsApp group for the team as well, which is very busy with information sharing. That's really the sort of main basis of it. We also have 2 team meetings as well in person, Monday and Thursday mornings, and a section of that as well is sharing any information that someone sort of gleaned in the week.
You're 4 years into running your own company now, very successfully, and you've gone from strength to strength. And I've seen your team grow, and it's so exciting what you're achieving. But what would you say is the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself since becoming your own boss?
It's a good question. And I think actually it's learning to juggle everything, because not only have I set up a business, which takes up a huge amount of sort of time and effort and energy. I also had 2 children. I've had 2 boys. So I have a 1-year-old, and I also have a 2.5-year-old.
So you have a 4-year-old, a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, one being a business.
Pretty much. Exactly. I do say this to anyone that I talk about this with, is that I see myself as having 3 children. You're thinking about all 3 constantly. It's a real juggle. You never really switch off, but I don't really mind that.
Do you have any brilliant advice for how to manage external stakeholders?
Strong communication skills underpin a business, and we are a service business. And so I drill that into the team constantly. We really try to not pick up the phone to our clients too often, because the whole reason, one of the main reasons they have us on board, is to save them time. So strong communication skills with them, keeping them updated, even when there isn't a real update. It's just dropping them a quick message or an email just to say that you're on the case. They don't need to worry about it, and you will update them when you do have a full update. Just not letting people hang there sort of wondering if you're doing your job. When we're reporting to a client or at any stage during the purchase, we'll often sort of write a summary of what we want to talk about, to schedule a call and to discuss that briefly. So at least they've then also had time to think it through, and we can be really succinct on our call, and they can then get on with their day. And language, the use of written language is critical, and keeping something very short. Again, clients are really time poor. They don't want a long verbose email. It's being very structured, very clear what you want out of that email, and indeed the conversation.
It's something that I've caught myself doing actually in my role, because less is more. And as much as I work with words on a minute by minute basis, the shorter and snappier the email, the more likely you're going to land that coverage, because people can skim it, go, oh yeah, piqued interest, because that email just needs to get you to that next step of the reply, that needs to get you to the whatever you need it to get to. But I think you can get so excited about things, and people write these long emails that no one has time to read anymore. So you're so right on that front. If you had your time over again in the last 4 years, is there anything you wouldn't do again?
Yes, I ended up expanding into a new service line. I gave it 2 years, and again, I was quite clinical about it. It wasn't working for me, dealing with a lot of problems in this sort of particular line of the business. And so I closed it. That took quite a lot of courage. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but if it was a big decision to make, and it has been a massive weight off my shoulders, and absolutely the right decision. And actually, you test something, and you obviously want your business to grow, and you sort of go down this sort of new service offering. And actually, it's just realizing when you need to come back to that initial strategy of wanting to be the very best, in our case, very best property advisory firm. And obviously the main focus being buying, and then we handle rental searches, and not getting distracted by other offerings.
What do you enjoy the most about being your own boss?
I'm not answerable to anyone. That is a big part of it. I'm a very decisive person.
This I know.
Yeah. I think it's a Dutch side. I'm also quite direct, but I'm very decisive, and most of the time pretty efficient as well. I just want to make a decision and crack on with it. And I think being self-employed as well, it's sort of, you create this wonderful business that you're so excited about, and you're just nurturing the whole time. You've got these really exciting goals that you want to fulfill, and that's just such a privilege.
And what do you enjoy the least?
The hours.
Yeah.
You never switch off. You know all about this as well.
Yeah.
And that has been a really, really full on. However, again, I kind of feel like I've reached a sort of turning point, actually, where I've invested into building out the team further over the summer. So I've employed a further 2 people. And that has given me much needed breathing space to wind down my hours to, I would say, relatively normal working hours. I still sometimes clock well over midnight and I'll put in those longer hours, and that's absolutely fine. But I was doing it day and night previously, and it was just unsustainable. I was on sort of burnout. Finding that balance again is so critical. I have also now taken on an external consultant to help me, which has been hugely beneficial. And I'm also taking on a non-exec director as well. So I suppose I will have someone to answer to in some respects, but having someone to help guide me, keep me on track with the strategy that we've agreed will be super helpful. And just having that support around you, because it can be very lonely when you're a sole owner of a business.
This is really interesting to say. A lot of people I've interviewed and spoken to is like, God, you're really brave doing it on your own. I could never have done it on my own. I had to have a business partner. I wanted to have a business partner. And I was like, God, no, I think I would probably have killed someone within the first week. I mean, the podcast for me has been my counsel and it's been my mentor, and everyone has given me such incredibly useful and kind advice. The loneliness when you are working to midnight and you're like, what am I doing this for? And there isn't anyone else to say, no, you've got this. I think that's where the recruiting element comes in. And you, Hannah, have been an incredible source of support for me. So being able to have friends around you that can be like, no, you're on the right track, keep going, has been amazing.
Definitely. But I completely hear your point as well. There's just no way I would have ever set up this business with someone else. I think I'm too independent like you to do that.
Independent is a very positive word for stubborn.
I think also there are a lot of businesses that are set up by two people. And at some point, if it's 50-50, that can get quite locked. There's no sort of escape route really. And having sort of sole ownership of a business, you are totally in control.
Well, you can scale when you want, you can sell when you want,
yes,
you can pull back when you want. And you can sense check it with people, but no one else has the right to say yes or no. And I think that's when people are looking for investment. It's like, be careful, because you then have other people that have a vote, which is always something to consider. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about the fact that you have run a successful company and had two kids at the same time. Is starting your own company quite liberating, and also starting your own family?
Yes, I don't think there's a perfect solution for anyone. And I really think that you've got to look at the long-term view and know your worth. And any future employer is so lucky to have you. And yes, fine, you're going to take a bit of time out for maternity leave, but it's such a small chunk. And if you're looking at it with a long-term view, and from my perspective, we obviously set up the business and I ended up having our first sort of sooner than I was expecting to, but that was absolutely fine. But did I give myself a proper break? No, I mean, I really did take a day. And then I was trying to withdraw from client meetings, not particularly successfully, because I had a Hong Kong client fly over when I'd given birth 2 weeks previously. So I ended up spending an afternoon with him. I mean, it's absolutely mad. Honestly, it just makes me shudder thinking about it now. But you do these slightly crazy things. And actually with the second, I was like, right, I'm going to try and take sort of 3 months off. I ended up actually taking the email app totally off my phone. And so I couldn't even access my emails. And my husband actually pretty much forced me to do that as a way to get me just to stop. Because I think most entrepreneurs just don't know when to stop, really.
Well, it becomes muscle memory as well. You can't, your phone always needs you. It's like an ant's nest. You send an email, there's 10 more. It's never not going to need you. So you have to draw that boundary with it.
That's true. And actually someone recently, a good friend said, you need a work phone and a personal phone and it will change your life. And I've had that sort of working for someone else, but for me, that's just a total anathema because you live and breathe it.
I'm very aware the screen time issue is a big one for me. But I think that's where it comes into recruitment again, getting the right people to be able to pull things from you and be like, right, that's in safe hands. Is there any last piece of advice, a golden nugget that you'd like to offer a new founder?
I think the key is you have to really love what you're doing. You've got to be passionate about it. I absolutely love property. I love looking around properties. I love advising clients. I genuinely love what I do. So it doesn't really feel like work. And that would be my biggest piece of advice to anyone.
Thank you, Hannah, so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation today and wish you very, very best of luck.
Thank you very much, Jules. It's been a pleasure.
If you'd like to contact Hannah, you'll find all of her details in the show notes, along with a recap of the advice she has so kindly shared. Thank you for listening to How to Start Up. I hope these conversations offer you some confidence, encouragement, and reassurance that you're on the right track. If you enjoy this podcast, I'd be so appreciative if you were to rate, review, and subscribe, as it will really help other people starting a company discover it.